Joining me today is New Hampshire Representative Neal Kurk, who's chair of the House Finance Committee. Neal, we left talking about three issues that the governor might use, should the revenue estimates come in where we think they will be, to veto what might happen. I mean, we're looking 5 months down the road or 4 months down the road after September. And you said the Medicaid expansion was one of the big issues that we hadn't talked about. And the governor's 2% state employee increase was the other one, and then the business profits tax. I want to talk a little bit about each of those three issues, but start with the Medicaid expansion.
Currently, New Hampshire passed and the federal government approved its own unique Medicaid expansion. This is under the Affordable Care Act, sometimes called Obamacare. We have allowed the federal government to provide 100% of the funding for people who are not eligible for Medicaid today, but who will be eligible for Medicaid under the new expanded definitions. These are basically poor people. They don't have any qualifying medical condition or need the way the current Medicaid population has to have. That's why we call it the expansion population. It's people whose only qualification for Medicaid, which is federal health care, is that they are poor.
And we put this in the last biennium.
This was put in 2 years ago, and it just started last year. But the program, when they're shifted to private insurance on the exchanges, the insurance exchanges, that starts January 1st for 16 and runs for 1 year till December 31st, 16.
And that's when it is set to expire.
It sunsets then, the program is over, and those people will become uninsured unless they choose to do things on their own. Because remember, under the United States Supreme Court decision, states have a choice whether or not they wish to serve the expanded Medicaid population. At the moment, New Hampshire has a plan to serve them, but it's a time-limited plan, and the end is December 31st, 2016. The governor wants that extended, and so do some legislators. But until the feeling of the budget writers was, until we have more data, we're partway through the first year when these folks are on private insurance paid for by the federal government. Until we have more data, we're not in a position to make an intelligent decision about whether the program is working and doing what we want and should be continued or it isn't. So everybody's agreed, all the legislators, and the governor knows this, there will be a separate bill introduced in the next legislative session that will allow the program to continue. If it passes, no problem. If it doesn't, the program ends.
She's looking at a Republican House and a Republican Senate. I think she may think her odds aren't as good as they once were.
Perhaps that's true, and certainly the House House Republicans are by and large opposed to expanding Medicaid. But the Senate, which drove it last time, is led by the same Republicans who do support it. So she has a great deal of support there, I think. But there's reason for her to be concerned, no question about it.
And I mean, from a political perspective, right, that's why it would be an issue that she'd want in the budget. That's
true, but she isn't going to get it in the budget. Everybody's made that clear to her, and that will not change in September.
So this will not be in there?
One can't guarantee anything.
Okay, I understand that. But as you read the tea leaves.
As I read the tea leaves, there is a very small chance.
And she won't trade business profits for this? Because when I sit back and look at the tea leaves, I see something the Republicans want, the reduction in business profits taxes. I see something the governor wants, and I see the potential of a compromise.
The compromise might be business taxes for a state employee pay increase. But as far as expanded Medicaid goes, that is not on the table to be compromised.
But that will show up one way or another for a vote
in the session that begins January of 16 and ends in June of 16. That will be a piece of legislation.
At that time, the federal funding goes from 100% to 97%, is that it?
95%, as we understand it. And that would cost us about $12 to $15 million to fund the second half of our budget year.
And if revenues look like they're tracking up, is it likely that the House would be inclined?
I don't think revenues are the issue when it comes to Medicaid expansion. One way or another, we would cut something else if we decide to go forward with that because it would be so important. So to me, revenues aren't the issue, it's the policy issue. Is this the right thing for the people of New Hampshire? Is this the right thing for the state of New Hampshire? This is going to cost us in the out years, starting in 2020, 2021, almost $50 million a year. Now that's a big enough sum to add to our existing level of expenses to suggest we're going to have a major new tax or a major tax increase to pay for that. And that's something that a lot of people have a problem with.
So it's really going to be a lengthy policy debate,
yes.
even if revenues are tracking up.
Yes.
Okay, we've got to end it there.